Before we begin this video, I'd like to point out that these are my own opinions and that I'm going to be going into heavy spoilers for both films. So keep that in mind as you're watching this video. For whatever reason, clowns are a common fear in America, with a whopping 42% of Americans coming out and saying that they're afraid of them. And thanks to Stephen King's It, this only added to that strange percentage who finds clowns scary. A story of a killer clown terrorizing kids and preying on their deepest, darkest fears is apparently so appealing that it was made into a movie. Twice. So now I'm going to be comparing the two, in order to finally settle the lifelong question. Why is 42% of America afraid of clowns? I don't get it. Since the newest version of It doesn't feature the group as adults, I won't be taking the 1990s adult part into consideration. Consider yourself lucky.
Why is it doing this? Why does it hate? Why is it so mean?
To say that the 2017 version of It did the friend group more justice outright would be a little bit unfair. There were limitations for the original It movie in that they really couldn't swear. The kids swearing is rampant in the book and in the 2017 version, but this makes them feel more organic and like actual kids who aren't around their parents. The original movie certainly had some great child actors in it, but I feel like they weren't as organic as the 2017 version. This is a tough comparison, but I feel as though the 2017 It had a lot more character in it. In the original movie, the characters were way too paper thin and one-dimensional. Even as kids, I feel like they lacked a little bit of personality. Whereas with the newer version, I could realistically only point out one kid who didn't have much personality, and that's Mike Hanlon, who I felt was underdeveloped and didn't have much to do in the movie. Even the bully characters had more development in the newer one and had a more humanized side to him, before turning into a murderous psychopath, of course. Everyone in the original It movie who isn't the main characters are so unlikable. So naturally, it makes you gravitate towards the main characters because they're the only ones who aren't over-the-top jerks to people. It makes your attachment feel unnatural and kind of reluctant. Whereas in the newer one, there's actual human beings living in Derry and not total dicks. So you like the main characters because they're legitimately interesting and have personality. Now, that's not to say that there isn't totally unlikable characters in the newer one as well, because there is, but it's not as rampant throughout this movie as it is in the original. So for argument's sake, I have to say that the 2017 version of It did its characters better than the original one. This one was a little bit easier to decide for me. Bill Skarsgård is clearly the better Pennywise here. He manages to not only frighten, but also charm the audience with his energetic and otherworldly performance. Now, that's not to say that Tim Curry Pennywise is a bad performance. I think it's hilarious and Tim Curry nails his role.
Kiss me, fat boy.
It's just that he doesn't fit the movie that he's in. The original movie is trying so hard to scare you, but it doesn't work with how silly Tim Curry's performance is. With the 2017 version, I feel like Skarsgård's Pennywise fits perfectly with this tone the movie is going for, which is like a horror adventure with some comedic elements thrown in. He's silly and scary exactly when he needs to be. We'll discuss the actual horror elements of both movies later on in this video. Tim Curry does do a great job of being a silly Pennywise, but unfortunately falls flat when it comes to the horror element, and Bill Skarsgård, while not as silly, does a great job of giving us the heebie-jeebies. The new It movie also explores Pennywise and what he really is a lot better. While also being subtle, his influence on the town of Derry, Maine is implied and requires a sharp eye to notice rather than being outright told the whole town is in on it like the original movie does. The reason why the new one works so much better is that it amplifies the horror once you figure out that the group of friends are alone and they're the only ones that aren't affected by Pennywise. The way the original movie presents this idea isn't bad, I just felt like their explanation for it wasn't great, so it falls really flat. On top of that, I feel like the appearance of 2017's Pennywise is a lot better looking. But, if I'm going to be fair, Tim Curry's Pennywise fits in a lot better with the time period the movie takes place in, which is the 60s. As much as I personally like Tim Curry's Pennywise, I still have to go with Bill Skarsgård's, simply because of how hypnotized and entranced I was by his performance. Now, when discussing the horror element of these movies, I felt a little conflicted. Neither of these movies are scary by any stretch of the imagination to me, so instead I settled with debating which movie was more creative with its horror. And this is where the original It finally gets some points with me. Because while they're not very scary, I find them creative and interesting at the very least. The new It movie suffers from an annoying over-reliance on jump scares. It makes them become so dull and repetitive after the first few, and then you realize that there's still tons left. There's nothing scary about a jump scare. It's literally just a human reaction and won't really have a lasting impact on you. This is easily the most disappointing aspect of the new It movie, and I hate that it's a trend in horror movies. What's worse is that this movie has a great atmosphere for actual horror, but ruins it by adding a cheap, loud booming sound and completely taking away the tension. The original It movie had some good atmosphere and good build up to the scare without adding the annoying sound effects, so props has to be given to this movie for that. The original It movie tries to be a little more creative with its scares, and it fits with what the kids from the 60s were scared of, like the Wolfman and the Mummy.
Stan, sorry I'm late. Well, let's see who's here. Billy boy. Richie, you still here? We never expected you to stick around. Nice nose job. No one would ever suspect. Haystack. Putting on a little weight, huh? Speaking of dads, Bevy, yours isn't worried about you anymore. He loves your choice in men. Wheezy, how's your sex life? What's your sex life? Well, Mikey, you did it. You got us all back here. I guess it's because it's the only way you'd ever see us. Since you're so lame, you'd never leave this town. I finally made it, guys. I'm in the deadlights now.
You know what? It's true what they say. We all float down here, and you will too. In fact, they all float. They all float.
Admittedly, there are some moments in the new It movie that are legitimately creepy without the use of jump scares, but they're so few and far in between that I can't justify liking it more than I do the original. So, when it comes to the horror elements, I have to give it to the original It movie. You remember when I said in the beginning of the video that when it comes to the 1990 It, I wasn't going to bring up the part where they're all adults? Well, for this segment, I have to touch on it briefly. The original It movie makes a baffling choice to tell the story in flashbacks, meaning that the kids in the Losers Club are now adults recounting memories of their past with Pennywise. Why this is a bad choice when it comes to storytelling is that it completely removes any sort of tension when they're kids. You know that they're all going to live because you've already seen them as adults, so what's the point of even showing them as kids? Now, you could argue that throughout the movie, it's certain adults recounting their memories and not all of them are in the same room. And that's a fair argument, but when it comes to the final confrontation with Pennywise when they're kids, all of them are in the same room now, and so therefore there is no longer any tension with the final battle with Pennywise. Whereas with the new version, they're never seen as adults, so each encounter with Pennywise is intense as you know that they're okay with killing kids and will do it again at any point. The original one does this as well, but again, with its strange storytelling, it loses any sort of tension it might have had previously. So I think the newer It presented its story a lot better, so I have to go with that one. Folks, at the end of the day, the 2017 It just does Stephen King's story justice. It gives a believable world with relatable characters and a terrifying and hypnotic antagonist. It's a story of friendship and not only overcoming but confronting your darkest fears. Had the original movie not had the limitations of being a TV miniseries, things might have been different. But when it comes to which is the better movie and which one will stand the test of time, I have to give it to the 2017 It. So that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you liked. Go ahead and comment. Click subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff. And I will see you guys next time.